Well, let's do some more Tai Chi. We're continuing our deep dive into the first third, and we've made our way to White Crane Spreads Wings, and today is brush knee, play guitar, and another brush knee. So let's start by looking at a little drill to help separate the movement of the hips from the leg. Here's the rationale. When we do a move like White Crane going into brush knee, we have to be able to turn away from the empty leg that's out here and not have it get pulled along with the other, with the turning of the waist. So we need to be able to turn, leaving the leg behind and turn away from it. So to get that feeling, let's do the separating, shifting, and turning in a 70-30. So take a 70-30, we'll do it on both sides. Doesn't matter which one you want to start with. And what we're going to do is, a lot of you have done this with us before, separate the shifting and the turning. So you're going to shift without turning, now all the weight's in the back leg, and then you're going to turn away from the empty leg. Shift toward the front leg without turning, and then turn in the front hip joint and repeat. So we're separating the motions. This is not how we do it in the form, but this is a good practice because this is what you have to be able to do to leave that leg behind and not have it come along with you. So we'll do this a few times, really focusing on when you're in your back leg, you're turning away from your front leg. When you come into the front leg, you're turning toward the front leg and leaving the back leg behind. So really working that hip joint, feeling the bottoms of your feet so that you have a good tripod on the bottom of each foot, keeping in contact, and then you move away from the empty leg, still keeping that connection at the bottom of the empty foot. And switch legs. Same thing, it may feel a little different on the two sides. We're not as symmetrical as we may appear. Letting go, turning toward, and letting go of the back leg. Shift, then turn, feeling that motion away from the empty leg. So this is a condition like Ben Lowe would say, you only have one leg. So you want to leave the other leg behind and just have one leg supporting you. And in Maggie's terminology, one leg owns both sides of the pelvis. So one leg owns both sides of the pelvis. You're releasing whichever one is the emptying leg. Making sure that the rotation happens in the hip joints, feeling your connection at the bottoms of your feet so that you know whether you're rolling and pulling the leg with you or leaving it behind and getting that motion in the quad that you need to be able to stand on one leg and turn away from the other one without dragging it along with you. So we'll do this a few more times. Really get the feeling of this, because next I want to do it in the bear. And I want you to have the same sensation of moving away from the emptying leg. And we'll do one more round of this one. And now let's try it. You're in the bear stance, and as you sit into one leg, you're moving away from the other one. Go to the bottom of the other foot, move away from the first leg. Bottom of foot, turning, moving away from the emptying leg. The quality at the bottoms of your feet will give you an indication of whether you're succeeding in leaving it behind or if it's being pulled along with you. What will happen if it's being pulled along is you will feel it roll at the bottoms of your feet. So good connection on the tripod, and as you turn away from that emptying foot, keep the tripod connected. That will help you leave that whole leg behind and turn away from it. Another thing you can pay attention to is what's happening in your knees. As you turn away from an empty leg, the knees should be pointing straight ahead, not being pulled off to the corner. That's another indication of whether or not you're succeeding in separating the movement at the hip joint. So just do this a little bit, get that working. The more you do this, the more freedom you will find in your hip joints to rotate easily on top of one leg without being held back by the other one. I mean, of course, at some point you're held back, but that's okay. You don't want to be hauling it with you and then having that throw off the whole rotation. Breathing, relaxing, feeling the bottoms of your feet. All 6 tripod points are staying in contact whether or not they are supporting your weight. Feeling that motion in the hip joint, particularly the hip joint of the leg that you're moving away from. You may find that it helps to focus on releasing the lower back to help this happen. If you're caught up in your lower back, it will make it harder to make the turn away from the empty leg. So a little bit of attention to softening the lower back can help make this motion more accessible. And we'll do this for another sec, couple of swings. And then let's do a first third. And all through this first third, you can be noticing how every time you need to turn away from a leg when you're 100%, what's happening on the emptying leg. And begin. So I'm going to look at the square form details, and then Lee can round it out and bring it to life. So let's start at white crane spreads wings in the position of the 2 feet being at 90 degrees from one another, making sure that your left foot will pass your right heel, not run into your right foot. So all the weight is sitting in your right leg. Your right hand drops, pinky side leading. Left hand comes up into a ward off, and this is the first checkpoint. You're 100% in your right leg, and your right fingers have come to about shoulder height, elbows a little dropped below that, and the palm is facing out. Your left hand is a lot like a ward off in front of the center of your chest. So let's just shake out our legs and do that much again, and then we'll move on to the next checkpoint. Right hand drops, left hand rises. Waist turns. Checkpoint, check your empty left foot. Now, your left hand is going to drop palm down. The right hand folds over, and the left foot takes a step. Heel first, no weight. And then let's shift to the final posture. 70-30. Left hand has come across your left thigh. Your right hand is like a push in front of your right shoulder. You want to make sure you have shoulder width. When you step, you need to step so that you will have some space side to side between your 2 feet. Rest your legs a moment. So there's this moment here when the right arm folds in, left hand turns palm down, and the right foot's going to take a step. I want to bring your attention to a little detail that is easy to miss. And it's not what you do, it's a description of what happens when your 2 hands end up in the right place. There's a connection between the middle fingers, kind of nail to nail, although of course it's not nail to nail, but it's the tips, the top piece of each of the middle fingers will come into alignment at the moment when everything folds in and your left foot takes a step. So, like many of these checkpoints, it's not like you need to stand here figuring out, oh wait, I gotta align these 2 fingers. It's a description of what will happen if everything is working in a unified and coordinated way. So let's look at these checkpoints again. Right hand drops, you turn, left hand expands. Now, left hand turns palm down pretty close to the body and just drops straight down as the right hand folds over and the left foot steps. You're still in the corner. You've got this alignment with the 2 middle fingers, and the stepping with the left foot needs to not draw you toward the front when you step. So rest your legs. This is what we're looking at with the exercises that we started out with, is being able to take the step without having it pull your body around to the front. So do this with me again, and we'll stop at checkpoint number 1. Make sure all the weight is resting in your right leg, your right knee is tracking the right toe, and sink, fold, step. You're still in the corner. The right foot is empty, heel first, no weight. Then you shift. Now, getting into this move, all you really need to do is turn the waist. It's not two things happening with the two hands. Even as they, this one comes forward and this one comes across your thigh, or knee, as the name of the move would imply. It's not two things, it's turning the waist. So let this motion here keep you in the corner so that when you begin to shift and turn, the turning drives both hands. And then it'll end up just where you want, left hand alongside your left thigh, right hand in front of the right shoulder. So let's do that one again. All the weight's in your right leg. Your right knee is tracking your right toes. You're stable on your right leg. The tripod is fully connected. As you sink, right hand drops, left hand comes up. No weight goes into your right leg. Just turn as far as you can. Drop the left hand, fold in the right hand, take a step. You're still in the corner. Heel first, no weight. Begin to shift, complete the move. Rest your legs. We've done a lot of work with brush knee, so I'm not going to just repeat all the little ins and outs of what's happening with the arm. I just want to look at the checkpoints that you want to go through to get to the final posture. You can look back at other videos that focus on the brush knee. Let's do it one more time, and then we'll move on to play guitar. So make sure you're keeping your right leg open to the right wall, releasing the left leg completely. Sink, hand drops. Left arm comes up, right arm in the corner. You're comfortable here. Left hand drops, right hand folds in close to your body. Left foot steps, heel first, no weight. Begin to shift, complete the move. Check and see that you got some width at the end. Rest your legs. One of the things to always be on the lookout for in moves like this, when we're turning and swinging the arm up, is that it's not the arm reaching somewhere that puts it where it's going. So if I do this move to this checkpoint and then step out of the posture, my arm is not reaching anywhere. If you want to reach with something, reach with your belly button, but keep your torso aligned and make the turning be driven in the waist and hips, not the shoulder and arm. There's no place that we have to get to. This is a transition. So you're just going where your hips can lead you. Where your hips will run out of space is going to depend on how open your hip joints are and how well you can turn away from your empty leg. So that's why we were doing this exercise. So let that be an indicator when you start turning and you feel this leg kind of getting hauled in with it. That's about as far as you can go. See if you can release it a little more. But don't worry about where you get to in this checkpoint. Make sure that just the checkpoint has your shoulders and your hips aligned, your nose over your belly button. It's kind of crazy how tempting it is to follow your hand with your head. And yeah, now my belly button and my nose are pretty far apart. And there's a couple reasons why we like to keep this alignment. One of which is that you actually know where you are. If you follow your hand, you don't have to turn at all, or very little, and you don't know it because you feel like you've turned a lot. Well, I turned my head a lot, but my torso didn't turn very much at all. So by keeping this alignment, you're driving from the center, not from the extremities, and you know where you actually are in space. So, one more time, then we'll move on to play guitar. Sync, right hand drops, left hand rises. Come to the checkpoint. Comfortable, all aligned. Hips, shoulders, nose, everything's nice and comfortable. You can see your fingertips in your periphery, but you're not looking at them. Left hand drops, right hand folds. Step, heel first, no weight. Shift, turn the waist, and that brings the two hands into position. Now from here, you're going to sit down into your left leg like a pelican on a post, Jane would always say to us. So this is your next checkpoint. Come back to the 70-30. Dropping into your left leg. As you do that, release the right leg completely so that the knee kind of drops, and that's what takes the foot off the ground. It's the movement toward the ground in your left leg that frees the right foot. It is not that I come forward to do that. See, that'll make me lean. And it's not that I sit into my left leg and pick my foot up. Rest your legs. It may look like that. It may look like we're just going. But that's a separate movement down in your leg. You don't want to have a separate movement down in your leg. We spent a lot of time talking about how to make authentic steps and releases with your feet and legs. This is a good place to look at. Let it be that as you come into your left leg, you're just releasing the right leg enough that the knee drops and the foot comes off the ground. I'm not trying to lift it. I'm not bringing it into the other leg. Just leave it there and sit fully into the left leg. That will free the right leg completely. One of the reasons you want to do that is so that when you put that leg back down, everything can be drawn to the back leg. You're not just in a 70-30 and you're not making steps. You're just into one leg, into the other leg. So there's a clean transition between the 2 feet. So first checkpoint is all the weight into the left leg and the right leg comes off the ground. Now you're going to replace the foot, put it down at an angle, ball first because you're stepping behind yourself, and as you sit into your right leg, the waist turns. The hands are drawn apart. And then the final checkpoint is you turn a little bit back to the front. The right palm relates to the left elbow. The left foot has moved in, resting on the heel, clearing the other heel so that you haven't stepped across yourself. So let's just do those checkpoints. 70-30. Sitting down into your left leg, right foot off the ground. right foot goes back onto the ground, and you turn to the right. That brings your left arm up, and your right arm and your left arm are kind of far apart. You turned to the corner. When you release to the final posture, the foot changes from onto the heel, moves in a little bit, and your two palms, your two hands come a little into relationship so that the palm of the right hand is relating to the elbow of the left. No weight. Rest your legs. If you've learned this move from us in recent years, you might recall us saying, stretch the rubber band and release the rubber band. So what we're trying to get at there is that when you step, here you just sit down. You're actually part of having this knee hang keeps you from turning. When you come into your right leg after you've replaced it and you shift the weight, you allow the turn that wants to happen, and it's as if you've got this big rubber band, big TheraBand or something, running through the body around you and to your two hands and to your foot as well. So that when you shift onto your right leg and you turn, it's going to pull your two hands as if there was a rubber band that's around your waist. It's not this, it's that the turn actually stretches like a rubber band, stretches the two hands like a rubber band. And then all you have to do is let go of the rubber band. And the hands will move into position. Your foot will move into position because the rubber band was around it too. So that when you turn here, it's kind of getting a little stretch in the leg as well, and you release the rubber band and you come into place. So let's do both brush knee and play guitar with the checkpoints, and then it'll be time for Lee to give it some life. Okay, and go. First checkpoint. Make sure it's empty. Second checkpoint. Heel first, no weight. And then the third one, final posture. Sit into your left leg, right foot off the ground. Replace the right foot, shift. This is the stretch the rubber band place, and then release the rubber band. And there's your final posture. You're not square to the front. Even if you could square, it will change the relationship between your arms. You're a little bit oblique to corner. No, wait. Okay, so now you know the places you're going to, and Lee's going to show us how to get there.
Great, let's continue. So we've worked on brush knee a lot. So we're going to call some things out to your attention, and you can work on those, and you can watch this video again, and you can go back and look at a whole bunch of other videos where we work on brush knee. So I'm going to, sketch out a bunch of things here in the next half hour, and it will take you some time to figure those out. We're told, everybody has their favorite moves, and we're told that brush knee was one of the favorite moves for Tam Gibbs, who was one of Professor Chung's translators in New York. Tam used to come here to Boulder in the summers and would stay with our teachers, Jane and Baton. And Jane told us that Tam would just spend all day long walking around the house doing brush knee. So what I take away from that is that there's an awful lot in brush knee, which is part of why we spend so much time working on brush knee. So let's start looking at some of the pieces. You know, as always with this, you have to have the precision of the square form. So you really want to watch for when you're coming out of White Crane and you turn and you stop at this first checkpoint that you didn't twist, that the upper body and the nose and everything didn't move away from the waist, that it was really all driven by the waist. And that's what the square form gives you, that when you step empty. And so, you know, we just spent a half hour working on that. I'm going to assume that you either have those square form details or you're ready to work on them, because and work on them until you do have them, because what we're going to build on now assumes that you're not twisting, that you're stepping empty, all that jazz. And so the first thing is the feet. When you step with the feet, they go down with the heel first, the ball not touching, right? I'm coming out of White Crane, I come across here and I step with my heel first. The ball is not in the air. And if I check the weight on this, what happens is the ankle actually relaxes and the ball goes down to the ground versus prying this whole thing off the ground. And if you watch, you can see when I pry, look what happens to my hips. The hip of the empty leg is going to come up and the whole body leans, as opposed to letting the foot relax in place, which does not affect the hips, doesn't lean the body, any of that. So then, how do you put the foot down? You know, in particular, we don't do this. You don't step flat-footed, and then from that flat-footed place, check that you can separate, because you won't be able to separate as well. And the putting the foot down is the start of the shift. So let's do this together. I want you to look at how you put the foot down. We're going to do White Crane, brush knee, play guitar, brush knee. Then I want you to pay special attention to how the left foot steps first with the heel, and then you lay the foot down. And laying the foot down is the start of the shift. That's when your hips are starting to ride down the half pipe towards the 50-50 place so you can come into the front leg. So the 100% place that you would separate is with the ball of the foot on the ground. When you sit down with your hips and start to shift, that's what puts the foot on the ground so that it's ready for you to finish. So I'm not going to stop you at the 100% places because you already know how to do that. I will want you to pay special attention to the way that foot lays down on the ground as the start of the shift. So taking it from White Crane. Okay, go ahead, turn, arms swing, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, sit down, that puts the foot on the ground. Notice 50-50 and come into your front leg. Shift down into the front leg, replace the rear foot, shift, stretching the rubber band, release the rubber band. Turn, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, heel first, sit down, that puts the foot on the ground, 50-50. Come into the final posture. So, doing that again, just so you really feel that putting the foot down flat on the ground is not a separate motion, but it is an integral part of starting to do the shifting into the 70-30. White Crane. Go ahead, turn, sink, fold, step, shift, that puts the front foot on the ground, 50-50, finish the 70-30. Gather into the front foot, replace the rear foot, open and close, turn, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, heel first, sit down, puts the foot on the ground, follow it into the 70-30. So these, when we step, basically whenever we're stepping for 70-30s, we step heel first, no weight, with the ball off the ground, and then the foot goes flat on the ground at the start of the shift. So that's true for coming into single whip, step, heel first, ball in the air, no weight. Then you sit down towards the 50-50, that put my front foot on the ground. It's true in the punch, you step, Heel first, no weight. You sit down, that puts the foot on the ground. It's true in four corners. I come through here and step out for the first corner. Heel first, no weight. I sit down, that puts the foot on the ground. So it's basically always true. Maybe there's an example I'm not thinking of where it's not true, but I don't think there is. It's always true. The same thing happens when you're stepping behind yourself. And so this comes up in Repulse Monkey. It's one of the things that we're always talking about with people. And it's right here after the first brush knee. I gather down into the front foot. I replace my rear foot. Ball first, no weight. And then I sit down into the front leg. This is the starting of the shifting going back. That's puts the heel on the ground. So I don't just step flat-footed and then come across here. I step ball first, down into the front foot till the heel of the rear foot is on the ground. Stretch the rubber band, release the rubber band. So let's do it once more. And this time, in addition to paying attention to how your front foot goes on the ground, pay attention to what happens with your rear foot when you're stepping for play guitar. So from White Crane, go ahead, turn. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, heel first, sit down, puts the foot on the ground into brush knee. Gather into the front foot, step the rear foot, ball touches, sit down into your front foot, which starts to move you back. That's what makes the foot go flat on the ground, and play guitar. And one more brush knee. Great. So you got to have that. And then with that, I want you to pay attention to the left foot as we step into play guitar. So Beth talked about this. The rubber band doesn't just run between the two hands. It also runs from the rear hand down to the front foot. So I'm in brush knee, I gather into my front foot, I place my rear foot ball first. I sit down, which puts the heel on the ground, and I come to this place where everything is stretched. So I've got a feeling of stretch, elasticity between my two hands. I also have one down to my front foot. And see how doing that actually created this slightly taut arrangement in the front leg, and the front foot is on the ball, not the toe, but the ball. So you want to make sure the heel comes off the ground. Then when you release the rubber band, the front foot comes in on the heel, right? So see how that changed from ball to heel. Now here's the next bit. As I turn, go ahead and let the front foot go down on the ground. So it's actually flat. And as you turn back, let the heel float. So now my heel has come off the ground. If I show you, so you can see my left leg, I gather, I stretch, and that stretching raised the heel. It's one of these things like the stepping exercise we've been doing, where it takes the slack out of the leg. I'm not lifting the heel. That won't do it at all. That messes me up. I stretch away from it, raises the heel. I let the final move happen. It's on the heel. As I turn, I let my front foot go down flat to the ground. And as I come back, I let that turning lift the heel so that it's easy to step. Remember, heel is root, ball is mobility. Heel is what connects you to the ground so you're stable. Ball is what lets you get dynamic action off of the ground and frees the foot in order to step. So when you do this, if you keep yourself on the heel, this front leg is going to feel a lot more tight. And when you step, you're still going to have a little root there that you're going to have to break and move your foot. So let the foot go down on the ground, flat. And when you come back, notice how that raises the heel. Not because I'm lifting my foot, but because the whole arrangement here, as I turn back, the hip moves away from the leg, which actually takes the slack out of it and raises the heel. And that makes it easy to move that foot, as opposed to still having on the heel where I've still got connection to the ground, and I'm going to have to do a little work to break that root and step. So let's do this little sequence another couple times, paying attention to all the things in the feet. You step empty with the heel. The start of the shift puts the foot on the ground. You step back with the ball. The start of the shift puts the foot on the ground. You stretch the rubber band from rear hand to front foot, which lifts the heel off the ground. When you get into play guitar, then you let the foot go down on the ground. When you turn back, that lifts the heel off the ground and makes it easy to step. Heel first, foot goes down on the ground when you start the shift. So I won't say quite as many words as that, but I probably will have plenty of cues for you. So from White Crane, turn, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, heel first, on the ground as you shift. Gather, rear knee drops, foot peels off the ground, goes back ball. Sit down as you shift, that puts the rear foot on the ground. Feel the stretch, rear hand to front foot. Release it on the heel. Turn, front foot goes down on the ground. As you come back to the front, take the slack out, let the heel lift, and step. Heel first, shift, that puts the foot on the ground. Back into brush knee. Again, paying attention to all those pieces. White Crane. Turn. Sink, fold, step. Heel first. Flat as you shift. Down into the front foot, peels the rear foot off the ground. Ball touches. Sit down to flatten the foot. Stretch. Release. Heel first. Let the foot go down. Come back to the front, lift the heel, step on the heel, sink to put the foot on the ground and start the shift. Once more, I won't talk this time. White Crane. Go ahead. Gather. Stretch, release, continue. Great. So, the word root has a lot of meanings. One of its meanings is foundation, or the thing out of which everything else grows. So actually understanding your root, how your feet relate to the ground, is the foundation for the rest of your form and is what you need in order to let all the rest of the form grow out of that. So don't neglect this. It can seem picky, our harping on heel versus ball, but it's really not. As long as I'm using my foot, as long as the foot is activated and there's tension and strength in the leg, they're not very different. They're a long way away from my head. They're sort of, glommed together in incoherent mass of tension, and you won't find much difference between them. But as you let the leg go and you actually drive all of this stuff from the waist, you'll find that heel and ball are very, very different. And so be clear about them. And this is a nice place to look at it. Okay, so then the next piece that we've been working on all of this is, how does the rise and fall? How does the dropping down through the leg and then the rebound coming back up through the leg happen? And you'll recall we've done all this work on the shifting in and out of 70-30s. And the thing that's happening there is that the rebound comes through the emptying leg. And this section of the form from really, as you go through single whip, lift hands, shouldering, White Crane, all of this stuff, a lot of times it happens in the same leg. So it's not the emptying leg, it's the leg you're standing on that you've got the rebound happening through. And so that can be challenging for us. So let's look at this from White Crane. And I'm going to stop you at exactly the wrong place to stop to make this authentic. But it's because I want you to find the place where the direction changes through the leg. So as I start out in White Crane, the White Crane we know is a place where the rebound has come up through the leg. The first thing I do is I sink and I reach the bottom of my right leg, right about here. Now another rebound comes up through that leg. That's what brings the arms over. And then I sink and step, and I reach the bottom of the right foot right at the 50-50 place so that the rebound can come through the rear leg into brush knee. And the final posture of brush knee, it's come up through the rear leg, and I haven't dropped into the front leg yet. So let's just do that. We will stop at the point where you reach the bottom in the right foot, and then I want you to simulate a rebound and then stop again at the 50-50 place and then simulate a rebound into the final posture. The reason I'm saying simulate is because it won't actually happen authentically if you stop like that, but I want you to see those stopping points. So, great. White crane, sink and turn, feel the bottom in your right foot. And now feel it come up through the right foot and sink, 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 sink down to the 50-50 place. And then it comes up through the rear foot into the final posture. Do that again with the brakes, and then we'll do it without brakes so you can actually feel the rebound. You've come up through the rear leg, sink down through the rear leg, stop. That's the inflection point where it changes. Now it comes back up through the rear leg, and you sink down through the rear leg to the 50-50 point. Now it comes up through the rear leg into the final posture. Okay, now a couple times without the brakes so that you've actually got a chance to feel that rebound happening. And if you're not finding the rebound happening, go back to the exercises we've done. Really important for rebound is this one where the arch increases and decreases, and this one where you notice how the direction changes at the 50-50. Those are simpler than what we're doing in the form here. So if you can't find it in the form here, go back to those exercises and work them more until you can start to find it, and then you can come back to the form. If you can find it back in the form here, go back to those exercises and work them more to refine your skill with it, and then it'll get better in the form. So basically, whatever you're doing, go back to those exercises and work them more, because you'll learn from them. So, white crane, we'll go through this continuously. Sink in, ground, rebound. Sink in, ground, rebound. Continue, gather into the front foot, ground, rebound. Gather into the rear foot. Turn, ground, rebound. Sink in, ground, rebound. So you'll notice I sneaked in a little bit extra. When we've come to the end of brush knee, then we gather down into the front foot, we touch ground there, and the rebound is what leads us into this place where the rubber band has been stretched, and then we release the rubber band, which takes us into the final posture. I'll talk about that more in a second. But I want you to feel this from the 70-30, sink into the front foot, get the rebound to come through the leg, that's what drives you into this place, and then release the stretched rubber band to get to the final posture. So, from white crane, twice more. Sink, ground and rebound. Sink, ground at 50-50, rebound into the final posture. Down into the front foot, rebound, stretches, release. Turn, ground and rebound. Sink, ground at 50-50, rebound. Again, white crane. Sink, rebound, sink, ground at 50-50, rebound, front leg, rebound to stretch, release the tension, turn, ground, rebound, sink, 50-50, rebound. The root's the foundation, so you got to have that. So we have in other classes spent a lot of time on the damned arm swings, And those will really help you figure out how to turn this hand over. So I'm not going to spend time on that right now. The thing I will say is that you turn further as the hand starts to turn over. So I drop, and from about here, my waist is towards the front, my lower arm is down 45 degrees. And as it starts to turn, I turn my waist a little further, and then I bring it back. So it's not that from this place here, then everything moves back to the left. Instead, the body turns more to the right, and then it comes back to the left. And when I step, I'm still in the corner. Beth talked about that a lot. So if you're having trouble getting that hand to turn over, go to our damned arm swings videos and work those. You see our method here. There's all these little drills that isolate the key skills you need to have in order to do the form authentically. And with the form, it's just all there. It's just, like a great river rolling ever on. There's no breaks. It just comes at you, comes at you, comes at you. And so you need to use that not to check out and just go through the motions mechanically, but to intensify every moment of the form. And as you do that, you'll find things that you can't do smoothly and easily. And guess what? We've got a drill for that. So go back and find those drills and work them. And then you'll be able to get that in the form. But the thing I do want to look at is what's actually happening in the arms here and the legs and the sequencing. So the sequencing, we say front arm drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps. That's a 1, 2, 3. And it's not a square 1, 2, 3. Those things do happen in sequence, but it's not like this, where I turn, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps. Although, that's not a bad thing to do a little bit till you get that. But when I actually do it, the front hand is dropping, the rear hand is folding, the front foot is stepping, and they reach this checkpoint all together. So this is another one of those, the motion plays out through the body. So what I'm doing is turning my waist and working with the ground, and that working with the ground causes the front hand to drop. You'll see that happening first. Causes the rear hand to fold over. You'll see that happening second. Causes the foot to step. You'll see that happening third. And they all complete together. It's not front hand drops, now it's steady. Rear hand folds, now it's steady. Foot steps. But they happen in sequence, 1, 2, 3, like that. So let's pay a little attention to that. I like the way you've been facing, so I can face this way, because then they get the side view. Okay, so white crane, sinking, rebound, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, everything arrives together, ground, rebound. Gather, stretch the rubber band, release the rubber band. Turn, ground. Front hand starts, rear hand folds, front foot steps, everything arrives together. Brush knee. Again, back to white crane. Go ahead. Turn. Sink, front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, arrive together. Shift. Gather. Stretch. Release. Turn. Front hand drops, rear hand folds, front foot steps, arrive together. Brush knee. Once more. Get the sequencing, get the playing out through the body, and get everything getting to that checkpoint exactly at the same time as the front heel touches down. The two hands have just finished, and you're still facing the corner. White crane. Go ahead. Dropping, folding, stepping. Stretching, releasing. Turn, dropping, folding, stepping together. Brush knee. Okay, great. I want to touch one more thing, and then we'll do a form up through the second brush knee, and we'll call it an evening. And that thing is the 8 hands, Peng Ji on the split shoulder, elbow, and pull down. Ward off, roll back, press and push. And, we think of those as being moves. Ward off as this move or this move, press is this move, push is this. That's where you start. But the 8 hands are various ways that the energy can be expressed through the body out into the hands. And so there's a bunch going on here. When I do this first bit here, I come across, Beth already talked about this being ward off. So ward off is about meeting. Ward off is not about protecting and building a wall. What I do with ward off is I connect to somebody. So as Beth comes into me, I connect to her with ward off. I'm not trying to build a wall here. I'm not holding her off, because if I do that, I give her my structure all the way through my body, and it's actually really easy for her to move me in a direction I didn't expect her to move me that way. I thought she was going to push me backwards, but it doesn't matter because I gave her a solid structure, and it's easy for her to move me. So as she does this, my ward off is a connecting. And I want to be very, very, very sensitive there. I don't want to resist and hold it all. I'm very, very sensitive there. So ward off is not a wall. Ward off is a meeting. And so when I get to this place here, I'm aware of ward off in this hand. Then this sinking as the front hand drops, that's one of the pieces of push. So as I do this, I'm doing an on is push in the name of the push energy in Chinese. I'm doing a deflection and on down. And so when I do that, I want my whole body to have that behind it. I'm not just waving my hands. And I'm certainly not pushing down while I come up and disconnect from the ground. So when you do that first bit here, and you get to this point, this is the sinking. And as my body sinks, I want to pay attention to this hand. And this is the cross-balanced hand, right? You'll remember from the last session, we talked about actually having the cross-balance, and Maggie saying, you need to be able to express energy through either hand, but it's a lot easier to do it through the full hand, through the hand with cross-balance. So you pay attention to that first, and then you figure out how to do it through the second hand, through the empty hand. So this one's the easy one. I come across here, I sink, so that's push going down, that's this piece of push, right here where the hands drop. Then we know push has these 2 other pieces, the uproot and the release. This one only does the hand down. So I come across here, I sink. This is meaningful. This isn't just waving my hands. This is meaningful. Push down. Now this hand becomes ward off. And so what it's doing there is it's connecting to an incoming force. And after it's connected it, as it turns over my waist, it's roll back. So roll back is about guiding something past you, not forcing it aside, but just letting it, oh gosh, how did that happen? I thought I was going to hit him or kick him, but instead I'm over here at the side. Roll back is a trick. Roll back is a trick that deflects the other person and guides them past you without them noticing. And if you start pushing with your arm, they'll certainly notice. So this move right here has ward off, push, ward off again, roll back. And at the same time, the other hand is doing a push. So as it's come over here, push, ward off, and now this hand comes through and pushes. So this is push, just like if I was doing it with both hands, except I'm just doing it with one hand. And together, because this is all driven by turning the waist, the thing Beth said, you're not just moving your hands, you're turning the waist to make this go. And I've got 2 different energies in my 2 different hands, ward off and then roll back in my bottom hand, push in my top hand, and it's driven by the waist. That's the characteristic of split, is that the 2 hands are making different directions, different energies, split, lié. 2 different directions, 2 different energies, and it's driven by the turning of the waist. So you really want to make sure that the push in the top hand, the ward off and roll back in the bottom hand are driven by the waist. Then you have lié split. If you don't have two energies in the two hands, you don't have split. If it's not driven by the waist, you don't have split. So this is a really cool move in that it exercises a lot of the core 8 hand techniques that are in the form. So let's do it a couple times. And I'll call out, push, ward off, roll back, push as we go through there. And then we'll do a form up through the second brush knee. So from White Crane, go ahead, turn, ward off in the left arm, push down in the left arm, step, ward off in the bottom arm, roll back in the bottom arm, push in the top arm. Gathering. This is a bit of a ward off. This is a bit of a press. Don't worry about that. Turn, ward off in the left arm, on, down, push, step, ward off in the bottom arm, roll back and push in the top arm, driven by the waist. Once more, try to have those real clear. Down, meeting, deflecting, connecting, pushing. So, White Crane, and go ahead. Turn, down, meet, deflect and push, gather, stretch and release, turn, down, meeting, deflecting and pushing. Great. That's probably too much in 35 minutes, so we'll stop there and do one more first third up through the second brush knee, and you should have plenty to pay attention to. From the top, use the ground. Everything comes from the center. Make it authentic. Go ahead. Great, take a break. So, the head swimming thing, all this stuff we're giving you, just think about Baton's answer to students when they would ask, why do you do the form so slowly? And Baton would say, because there's so much to do. So you should start feeling like there's a lot to do in the form. See y'all next time.